Bro, I hate doing tier lists. I hate tier lists with a passion. I don't think they're very valuable, but everybody likes watching tier lists. I've only ever done one tier list. So now that we just got our balance patch in December, let's do a tier list. So that way everybody knows where I stand on these classes. We can talk about all the classes now and where they fall in the meta. As I go through and put all these builds together and update them over the next couple of months, this video will serve to be kind of like a guiding light. I'm trying to actually have it be somewhat relevant, give you an idea of where everything falls in relation to each other. So let's get into it. First, we are going to be doing a DPS tier list. I will be referencing Guild Wars 2 Wingman to kind of show where these classes fall and kind of where they were versus where they are now. So hopefully this will be useful. I don't think most tier lists are, but whatever. I think that the Power Tempest still a very strong class. We'll just go through, do the Power and Condi Chronomancer, I think, is not very good. I think their boon support spec is very good, but the regular DPS is not very good. Reaper, kind of similar. It's being competed with by its other specializations, but for DPS, it is a very easy build. It's not super good compared to its other options in group play. In open world, the Reaper is probably one of the best classes to play. Scrapper, I think Scrapper is either A or S tier. Absolute banger of a build. The quickness build's really strong. DPS build's really strong. I think actually as a DPS build, it's probably S tier. Druid as a DPS, it's severely lacking. It only really has a very high APM Condi build. That spec is not designed for DPS. We just kind of force it to do DPS. As we get into the other builds, you'll see that there are a lot of specializations that the community just kind of makes do stuff that they aren't really designed to do, in my opinion. Daredevil has a decent Condi build, has a decent power build. I would say it's pretty much B tier. I think that Thief as a whole is kind of in a not super great spot. I think Spectre has made a lot of progress, and it seems like Antiquary did find its niche among the community, but ultimately I've found that almost all Thief builds kind of play the same outside of Spectre. Spectre is the only real outlier that has a different play style, but Daredevil is just like souped up regular Thief. It feels like you get an extra dodge, you get a little bit of DPS on your dodge. So whether you're playing the power version or the Condi version, it's just kind of a little bit better core Thief. In a similar sense, Dragon Hunter is one of my personal favorite builds, but it's just not super good in comparison to the rest of the other specs as a whole. In comparison to its own counterparts, which would be the Power Willbender or the Power Luminary, I would say it is easier to play, easier to set up, and to get close to that benchmark number. And in the open world, it's one of my favorite builds to play, but it definitely is worse than both of these builds in terms of survivability, in terms of the amount of tools you have. You just kind of like throw your stuff out there. It does a lot of AoE and you keep it pushing, which in most open world scenarios is completely fine. The DPS Herald, kind of the same thing. I would say the Quickness Herald is where everybody hangs their hat. As far as a actual DPS class goes, it's lacking compared to its other specs, especially the Conduit. The Conduit is kind of popping off right now with its Condi DPS build. And the last of the Heart of Thorns era, we have Berserker, which unfortunately I really like Berserker. But is it good? Is it better than Spellbreaker? I would say it's better than Alacrity Paragon in a DPS sense, or Alacrity Bladesworn in a DPS sense for boon support. Its kit feels a little bit dated in terms of pure DPS. I know you could still pump numbers with a pure DPS Berserker. Its Condi build is still a lot of fun to play. It's just a little different. It's kind of an older play style almost. It doesn't have all the new tools that these new specs have. So that's it for the Heart of Thorn specs. For Path of Fire specializations, we have Weaver, which I think Weaver is not super good. I think that basically the Weaver has DPS numbers, but the Tempest has all of the supportive options. So like if you're going to do DPS and you want to bring any kind of support, you're going to want to bring Tempest. You're not going to want to bring Weaver. Weaver is a very selfish build. It does do damage, not very good in terms of actually helping your group out. Mirage, I think Mirage is all right. I think that now that Alacrity Mirage is back, it's a little bit better, but that's a boon support build. I don't know where I would actually put Mirage. I think probably in C tier. It just gets super outshined. The power and Condi Chronomancer build are easier to play than Mirage, and you get a similar result. You have all the same problems as Chronomancer in terms of clone management. The build is super hard to play. You have a lot of forced movement with it. It is fun. I do like playing Mirage, but it's not super intuitive. Scourge, I'm going to put Scourge in A tier because even as a full DPS Scourge, you have a lot of built-in utility. I think that the Condi DPS Scourge is one of the like sleeper classes that if you just stack them, you just kind of win. The kit itself is so broken that you could basically run full DPS and then just change a couple of little things and then you support your group so much. So I'm putting it in A tier for sure. Hollowsmith. Now, Hollowsmith was the class. I think I put it in D tier last time, and the reason for it is because you don't have any kind of group support. Your rotation is really fast paced. You use some kits along with Forge, so you're managing a lot of blind cooldowns. And what ends up happening with builds like this is if you can play this build or you could play like Power Scrapper, most people are going to play Power Scrapper over Power Hollowsmith. Because at least with Power Scrapper, it's less things to manage blindly. With Hollowsmith, you're managing your Forge rotation along with your weapon rotation alongside your kits. And the way people do this is they kind of tie skills together. So they know when, this pistol 5 or whatever goes off cooldown, then they know that their kit 3 is coming off cooldown or kit 4 is coming off cooldown, whatever the rotation is. And then they know that after they do that, then they can go into Forge and do the Forge rotation. And it's all just like a big balancing act of the resources available to it. I understand how it works and I understand how people manage blind cooldowns. It's not very fun to manage blind cooldowns. So I don't think Hollowsmith is good. Now, whether or not it actually pumps numbers, like if you wanted to do a tier list and just go to, if you wanted to just go here and just go to the benchmark numbers and this is your tier list, then hey, that's your business. But I don't think that just because you have a high DPS number means that your build is actually good. This build, Condi Druid, I don't think it's that good. Number 5 on the DPS chart, not a very fun build to play. Soul Beast. Soul Beast is another one that is super good in my opinion. It has the ability to bring group support. It has a very easy functional burst pattern. Super useful in power fights. It has a Condi option that is fairly easy to follow as well. But most critically is that you could take one trait swap and then bring stability for your group or bring some support for your group. And not a lot of other DPS options here in B tier have that option. Chronomancer does technically, but I just think that the rotation is kind of fucked. Deadeye. I think Deadeye is not very good. It's still where it was years ago, where it's only valuable in certain niche scenarios. It's only good in scenarios that need like range and range self-sustain. It is another very selfish build. It does perform pretty good in certain content. Everybody talks about pistol, quickness, Deadeye, stuff like that. That's a niche kind of meme esque build. It's probably the best of its kind. When you're talking about one button low intensity builds, the pistol Deadeye is probably the S tier build. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about actual general DPS. I don't really like the crouch mechanic of Deadeye in general that you do need for your different rotations. Having to manage like crouching and then moving, that it's super frustrating when you're like trying to move out of a mechanic and you're crouched and then you're like, oh shit, it's not fun. Willbender. Willbender is a Guardian. I think that the Condi Willbender is one of the best Condi builds to play. It's super easy to learn. It's really fast paced, but ultimately it's just so spammy that it's like, just press all your buttons. Just spam all your shit and you should be fine. Just make sure you spam them in the right order. And with that, I think it is a Guardian, right? So you do have some inherent utility that you can bring. And so I think Condi DPS Willbender, especially in terms of like, if Condi DPS Willbender got wiped off the face of the earth, like who would do the gluttony mechanic? You'd probably try to find maybe a thief build to do it, or you know, maybe a warrior or something would do it. I don't know what Condi builds are like really have the same kind of kit that the Condi Willbender has. So I think that's an A tier build for sure. Next up, Renegade. Now this pains me because I loved the Renegade. My very first Doom clear was on a RR Rev, which was a build that allowed you to run full DPS and still provide alacrity to your group. You would run 2 of them instead of a singular alacrity DPS. It was a very fast-paced rotation, but the Renegade is very near and dear to my heart. That being said, based on the same metrics that I am judging everybody else on, it is super bad right now. It doesn't really have a power DPS option. Its Condi DPS option only has its core kit still. It doesn't have any support for the group, maybe outside of a little bit of other boon generation. But the full DPS Renegade is just kind of lacking. The question is it B tier or is it C tier? I think it's probably in C tier. I think the Condi Renegade is closer to what I would consider Mirage or Hollowsmith in terms of how much work you need to put in to get the DPS out than it is to say something like Dragon Hunter or Daredevil for sure, or even Reaper. Spellbreaker. I would say Spellbreaker is either an A or an S tier DPS build. Probably A tier. Reevaluating some of these, I would probably move these ones up. The reason why I think it's A tier is that it doesn't have a whole lot of group support available to it. It does have a lot of self-sustain. It's very, very tanky. It has an easy to follow rotation, and it has a lot of creature comfort. So it provides itself stability. It has a lot of CC, so you're not stuck on break bars or you're waiting for that one CC skill to come off cooldown. It has a lot of built-in defensive options to it. I really like Spellbreaker. And that basically wraps up tier list. Now, just before I move on to the end of Dragon specializations, I did want to say, bringing these ones up, the Scourge and the Tempest, just because they do have group support options available to them as a full DPS. We're not talking about boon supports, even though these 3 as their boon supports are very, very good still for group support. But as a full DPS, like if you have a full DPS guy, he is not a quickness or an alacrity DPS, they join your group and they have certain things that they can bring. You know, Tempest has rebound always available to it. That is basically a get out of jail free card. They always have water overload available to them. Scourge always has Condi clears on their shades. Super good. Scrapper always has its res gyro, already has things like sneak gyro that it can bring to assist with different things in different scenarios. So these are just like core kit reasons why they're up here. For End of Dragon specs, we have the Catalyst. Now, the Catalyst, I think, is similar enough, close enough to the Tempest. that I think that the full power or Condi variant is kind of pretty good, but the problem is the utility skills. I would say that it is probably right up here because it is similar to Soul Beast that, yeah, you do need to make some changes to your build to kind of help the group out a bit, but you do have some tools available to you to assist the group. So we'll put that one there. S tier, Virtuoso. Power and Condi Virtuoso are still S tier, as you can see. Pretty much since it was released, it's kind of maintained a pretty strong hold. Up until recently, I think a lot of the Virtuoso players have kind of shifted to the Ritualist and the Amalgam. But Virtuoso, yeah, so look, everybody's playing the meta. So this right here is our meta gamers. So this is Janther Wild's release. It was almost 15% of the players were playing Virtuoso. And then it just kind of shifted. Dude, we had a balance pad, 18%, Jesus. And then now we're kind of back to a normal standing. A lot of people were playing Broken Evoker with Visions of Eternity. They were playing Broken Ritualists. And obviously the Amalgam, I think, was the other one. So I think a lot of Virtuoso players kind of shifted into those builds just because of how broken they were. But it is still, in my opinion, S tier. It has full range DPS options for both the power and Condi variants. It has a ton of CC. You run basically full glyphs on the Condi version, so you're not really worried about managing utility skill usage outside of a couple ones. And then for the power DPS rotation, it's pretty easy to follow. It's pretty fluid, so it's definitely an S tier build. I don't think anybody is surprised to see that. Condi Harbinger, Power Harbinger, if Power Harbinger still exists. I think it's Condi mostly now. I think it's pretty good. It doesn't have really any supportive options. It does have some Condi clear and stuff. I think it's probably A tier. It does pump really high damage. I would say that the Condi Harbinger is similar to the Condi Willbender, where it's a very fast-paced rotation. You do have your little shroud you go into and you need to manage, but it's pretty close to the same as a Condi Willbender in terms of what it brings to the table. The Mechanist. The Mechanist does have some supportive utility. I would say in terms of DPS Mechanist, it's an A tier build. It's not the best build. It is a very easy build. Condi Mechanist for a while there was absolutely broken. And then for power, we had the power rifle or power sword. It was a power sword, Bloodstone Relic, Mechanist, broken build. That got nerfed a little bit, but it still works. It's a super easy class to play. I mean, your Jade bot does half your damage. You do the other half. You could run it with like one kit. You don't have a tool belt skill. You don't have a shroud. So I would say A tier is probably a good spot for it. Untamed. Now, Untamed is definitely not an S tier build. If we were doing an open world build tier list, I would say we're going S tier because I think the Untamed is absolutely broken in the open world. It's got insane amounts of sustain, insane amounts of boon output in terms of like a quickness DPS version. But in terms of a raw DPS version, it probably ends up in B tier. I wouldn't hate to see one. I don't think it's quite as complicated as these down here to actually get your DPS out. But it is very, very fast paced though. I would say it's closer to these than it is to these. I'd hate to do it because I really do like the class. I do like the class. I like the kit, but I would say these two are like best buds of the way that they feel to me in terms of how complicated it is versus what you get out of the actual build. So sorry, Untamed, dude. All right, Bladesworn. Bladesworn isn't super hard to play. It just doesn't bring anything new to the table. I would say Bladesworn DPS is probably in this tier where it's kind of similar to either Dragon Hunter or Power Reaper or Chronomancer in terms of difficulty. It is a little bit of a weird rotation to get the maximum DPS out of it, but you can do it. Is it like the Berserker though? In terms of DPS, Berserker's way more fast paced. The thing about the Bladesworn that I don't like is all of your DPS is basically tied to your dragon trigger. You can kind of simplify it and stay in dragon trigger mode or dragon blade mode or whatever, your little shroud mode. I just think that it needs some buffs. The thing is it does DPS. Like where does it land? Our Berserker is 21. Power Bladesworn is 9. So it does damage. It's just it doesn't do anything else. That's kind of the problem. And as you can see, let's see, Power Bladesworn is right here, 1.64%. Not very good. Spectre, Condi DPS Spectre. I want to say it's an A tier build. It has a lot of group support that it can bring. Firebrand, Condi DPS Firebrand. Condi DPS Firebrand is a shadow of its former self. I would say it's pretty good. It's definitely worse than Willbender is. It has more support than Dragon Hunter, but not by... I mean, it's a Guardian, so... It has its tomes. It has a pretty fast-paced, strict rotation. It has a lot that it does. I don't know whether or not it's better than Spectre. I think Spectre as a DPS build is probably better in terms of what it brings. Maybe it is A tier. I think DPS wise though, if we're looking at just DPS, this is probably good. I don't think Condi Firebrand is as good as it once was. And Vindicator. The Vindicator is a shadow of its former self. I think it does pretty good DPS still. Let's see, where is Power Vindicator at? How far down is it? Jesus. Power Vindicator is number 48. Jeez. All right, yeah, that's why. Now, I think it's not Grief tier. I think it's C tier. Power Vindicator was one of my go-to specs. It was actually really easy to play. You know, great sword, Power Vindicator. It's pretty straightforward. It's just dodge a lot, use 3 buttons, dodge, use 3 buttons, and that's it. And you don't do as much damage. Now the difference between number 48 on the DPS chart and number 5 is like what, 3k DPS. So yeah, the difference between Power Harbinger 44.9 and Power Vindicator 44 flat, you're talking about 900 DPS and 18 ranks. So even though it is down here on this list, I just think it's kind of an older build that needs a little bit of love. I would say it's actually, you know what, we're moving our way from Grief up to B tier. I would say it's pretty on par with what Dragon Hunter is. All right, now for the moment everybody's been waiting for, the post nerfs. I have played most of these. I am aware of kind of where most of these fall. I would say the Amalgam is a class that is really, really strong right now. I would say that the Ritualist is probably still up here somewhere. Probably an A tier build still. Maybe less. It did get nerfed pretty bad. Evoker, kind of the same thing, got nerfed pretty bad. All of these builds are like really subject to change. I would say the Luminary, everybody loves the Luminary build. I don't like playing the Luminary, man. I don't like the rotation that it has. It's super kind of annoying. As an open world build, it's absolutely great. Absolutely outstanding as an open world build. You could run basically full DPS. You have so much sustain, so much boon generation. But as an actual power DPS build, like, would I want to play power DPS Luminary or would I want to play power DPS Spellbreaker? I think I'm gonna put it B tier. That could be the spice this season. I think that it's probably on par with these classes. I don't think it's maybe it's an A tier. It does more DPS than a lot of these guys. It's a Guardian. It has a lot of CC. Yeah. I don't know. I just don't like the build. Maybe I'm being judgmental and I want to rank it lower, because I don't like the build very much. But I think probably, if I'm being honest, it's probably A tier for sure. If I had Hellmasker on Luminary in my squad, I'd be pretty comfortable with it. Troubadour, Power Troubadour. This is where, I love Mesmer. I play Chronomancer and I play Virtuoso a lot. Do I think Power Troubadour is better than Power Virtuoso? No. I think in the open world, absolutely. I think open world build, Troubadour is the way you want to go, because you kind of get all the boon stuff that you get in Chronomancer, but you don't deal with clones like you do with Chronomancer and Mirage. You have like the not clone generation of Virtuoso, but you get a lot of the boons from your instruments. So as far as the DPS build though, DPS Troubadour, I don't think it's very good. Gale Shot, they call it Gale Sworn for a reason. It does DPS. It does have a lot of survivability. Open world build's pretty good. Where does it actually, before I finalize this, where does Gale Shot end up on the bench? Longbow, axe. Yeah, I'm gonna just play it safe and leave it next to Blade Sworn. The way I see it is, it feels a lot similar. Feels very similar to Blade Sworn in terms of strict utilities to get its DPS and so on and so on. Antiquary does DPS. I think it's probably a C tier build in my opinion. It's confusing. I don't think a lot of people like it. I think like Thief players probably played it. Most people, here we're looking at Antiquary at 1.89 play rate, one of the lowest. I mean, it's still probably higher than, it's higher than Blade Sworn and it's higher than Spellbreaker, but it's not a super. I think Thief players kind of cannibalize it themselves. I don't think most people are like, oh yeah, Virtuoso's dead, I'm gonna go play Antiquary, so I'm gonna put it in C tier. I don't think I think it's fine for what it is. It does have a bench here that's pretty high right here, Power Antiquary. I just think it's probably a very annoying build to play. Most of these Thief builds are like that. I personally haven't played much of it, so maybe I'm completely wrong, maybe I'm biased, but based on what I know about the build, it's not super hot. Boom. Conduit, absolutely broken. It is very, very strong. It got nerfed a little bit in the last patch, I'm pretty sure, but it's still very, very strong. It's kind of the I think Conduit is stealing a lot of what the Condi Renegade was, and a lot of the build stuff that you do between spear and mace axe gameplay, that was kind of the Renegades thing with longbow back in the day. But it's a really strong build. It does have some inherent support, maybe not as much as these main three, but it's just an absolute powerhouse right now. Power Paragon's grief tier for DPS. I'm pretty comfortable with this being my DPS tier list. I feel like this is actually pretty accurate, and it sucks because a lot of the builds that I really enjoy are not where I would want them to be, right? I love Chronomancer, I love Dragon Hunter, but realistically, these are kind of where things lie. I would say if people really want to argue, maybe this would be S tier, or maybe Ritualist is still S tier. I think if pre-balance patch, absolutely Ritualist is S tier. Evoker, S tier in terms of DPS, just by the sheer numbers that they do. But now this is probably a pretty realistic. This is the impression that I get. If you watched the video, thanks for watching. If you think I'm wrong on any of these rankings or am missing something about any of these builds, let me know in the comments section below. And with that, thank you for watching. A big thanks to all of my subscribers, and a special thanks to all of my members who support the channel. But as we roll into the holidays, I got a couple more of these videos coming out for you guys, and I have some more videos coming out here pretty soon as well. So I'm trying to work on getting it all put together and released, but life is life. So with that, Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.